them see that we spoke with one powerful voice for significant change. Let them see that God acted powerfully in our midst to accomplish the vision of hope that we so desperately seek. So tonight we're here to take risk and be a part of the solution and not continue resting in the problem. Tonight we're here to take risk and join with these brothers and sisters around us today to speak truth to power instead of mumbling under our breath. Tonight we're here to become a part of the answer and not continue to be satisfied asking a bunch of questions. People of God, tonight we're here to speak out for the most vulnerable in our community, to establish the future we believe they deserve. And tonight we're here so that when our children ask what we did to make a difference in our community, we will say that we did justice. And tonight we're here because justice demands risk.
Church and also a member of the RISC Board of Directors. For 17 years, we have been gathering here to do justice. Through these years, we have accomplished major improvements for the Richmond region. And we have learned that root-level change takes persistence and time. In some cases, our persistence is still needed as we continue pressing for a better community. Two examples of this are as follows. In 2014, RISC started working in Henrico to improve reading for students in the East End. In 2016, we started working at Chesterfield to improve school-based supports for students facing trauma. Like everything we do together, this work is grounded in stories that you shared. At this point, we have not seen the progress that children attending our county schools need. Last year, Chesterfield leaders committed to train all 4,000 staff members in a nationally recognized trauma response program. The Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services offered to provide this training at no charge. We were excited to see this level of commitment, right?
Right.
Yes. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for the follow-through. We have struggled to get clarity from school leadership on what is happening. But there is good news. Both Henrico and Chesterfield counties have new school superintendents. We are determined to build strong relationships with these new leaders and work directly with them to strengthen our schools. If you live, work, or worship in the counties, and if you care about our county public schools and the students and teachers who are doing their best every day, we hope you will be a part of this continuing work. Please stay tuned at the end of tonight's program to learn how you can become involved. Thankfully, we have evidence that persistence pays off. Tonight, I have exciting updates to share about Richmond's healthcare jobs pipeline. For 4 years, RISC pressed our local hospitals to create a healthcare jobs pipeline to have a pathway for low-income job seekers to enter high-demand healthcare careers. We collaborated with the hospitals, J. Sargent Reynolds Community College, and the workforce centers to build this pipeline, which includes training on medical and workplace skills, along with mentorship and services like transportation. In 2016, VCU Health System and HCA Virginia made commitments to build and use the pipeline to recruit job seekers from low-income backgrounds. After 2 years of planning, the pipeline launched last June. In the past 10 months, VCU Health System interviewed 45 participants and hired 23 of them. VCU Health System leadership also noted that Bon Secours is now on board and plans to recruit through this jobs pipeline. Persistence pays. Say it with me. Persistence pays. Let's continue our persistence and hope for our community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Hollahan, and I'm a Justice Team Leader at First Unitarian Universalist Church. As part of RISC's Evictions and Housing Initiative, I want to introduce Dr. Catherine Howell, co-founder of the RVA Eviction Lab at VCU. Following Dr. Howell's presentation on evictions in Richmond, we will hear from two members of our community who have personally witnessed the impacts of eviction and lack of affordable housing. These stories and many others have shaped the work of our evictions research team over the past several months. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And my students never do that, by the way. I'm going to say something and they just going to stare at me like blankly. But I also have 2 hours and 40 minutes, so here I've only got 5 of it. All right. So why am I here? Why is this academic up in the pulpit, which my mom, who's a pastor, would never imagine that I'd be? Okay, well, I'm here because we've got a problem. Richmond is on a top 10 list that no one wants to be on, and that is the top 10 list of the highest evicting cities in the country. We are number 2. And that's not a place you want to be. Our eviction rate is nearly double the state rate, and it is 4 times, in fact more than 4 times the national rate. We have a problem. And evictions are impacting neighborhoods across the city. Every council district exceeds the national rate, and 5 council districts have rates above 13%. That's big, right? But when you bring it down to the neighborhood level where we all actually live, I mean, council districts are still pretty big, the rate's uneven, and it's disproportionately impacting communities of color, where rates in the north side and the south side exceed 20% and even 30%, right? 1 in 5, 1 in 3. That's a problem. But more importantly, we have 4 schools in our city where neighborhood eviction rates exceed 20%. That means 1 in 5 households in those neighborhoods are being evicted every year, and that means we've got kids who are constantly in a state of motion. We have a problem. And we also know that eviction is more than just a moment. You don't just sort of get evicted and kind of move on with your life. It is a process. No one is just evicted. Evictions follow you. Whether it was just a filing or a judgment against you in court, it means that finding housing is nearly impossible, because evictions on your record can be as sticky as criminal convictions. So if you are a low-income household, your already small number of affordable housing, affordable units shrink immediately with an eviction. According to Homeward, 35% of the homeless individuals interviewed during the 2018 point-in-time count had been evicted in the previous year. Many more end up living in extended stay hotels, doubled up with family or friends, or in extremely poor quality housing. All of this adds up to significantly unstable situations for families and children. We also know that people often end up in cycles of eviction and instability. And we know that housing instability makes learning difficult for children and impacts physical and mental health, and makes maintaining employment really, really difficult. But evictions aren't just happening in a vacuum, right? There's a reason why we got here, and part of that is because they're occurring in the midst of a constrained housing market for low and moderate income households. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, there are 30 available and affordable units per 100 households earning less than $26,000 a year, and 63 affordable and available units per 100 households earning less than $41,000 a year. So with our current stock, we're only able to affordably house 30% of our lowest income households and just over half of our moderate income households. This means those working full-time jobs such as retail, janitorial staff, preschool aides, and others are paying more than 30% of their incomes for rent, which makes that unaffordable. In fact, of those earning less than $26,000 per year, 3/4 pay more than 30% of their incomes for housing, and that's the national standard for what affordable housing is. And 1/3 of those earning less than $41,000 pay too much. So what does this mean for evictions? As soon as many households sign their leases, they are set up to fail because it takes one bad day, a car repair, a medical bill, a high heating bill, or a small reduction in your hours to make it impossible to pay your rent. We need more affordable housing. That's the bottom line. The other piece here, though, is that it takes time and money, and it was exciting to kind of hear as you're talking about the long time that you are working. RISC continues, and RISC keeps working, and it takes that time. Fixing that, we didn't get to this problem in a year. That 11% rate of evictions has been sustained over at least 16 years. And if you look at the map of disinvestment, eviction, poverty, poor housing conditions, low food access, or any other indicators of inequality, they all look like Richmond's map of redlining from the 1930s. And in case you haven't been kind of following, redlining was the race-based system of mortgage insurance that put homeownership out of reach and impossible for African Americans across the country, and particularly here in the city of Richmond. So eviction is an indicator of significant long-term inequality. So we need to start by investing in affordable housing. Building affordable housing costs between $150,000 and about $200,000 per unit. In fact, most housing costs that much, just to be clear. It's not just affordable housing. So we're going to need more at the state and local level to increase our supply of housing to those earning less than $41,000 per year, or 50% of the regional median income. We've got to stop the supply of people who are getting evicted. We've made progress. The diversion program that's being considered at council through the mayor's office, it gives a chance to really stop the cycle from repeating, but we're just slowing the number of people who are actually kicked out of their homes. We're not slowing the supply of people going to court, and we've got to slow that supply. It's kind of like when you have a hose and you try to bend it to keep the water from going out, right? Probably should turn off the spigot, right? Right. We won't be able to change the map of inequality across the city until we deal with the root causes of lack of affordable housing and inequality. Thank you.
Good evening. Over the last few years, I've mentored young women who live in Gilpin Court, the largest housing development and one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Richmond. Tonight, I'll share with you how we've failed Gilpin Court. We've let our neighbors suffer in silence. We've let them live in the back alleys of Richmond without a roof over their heads. We failed at least one African American family of their chance to flourish. A 17-year-old was robbed of her childhood in order to support her family. Her mother was battling cancer. Her father was out of the picture, and her brother was too young to quit school and get a job. So this young woman had no other choice but to go to school during the day and to work as a cashier at night. But who are we kidding? Working as a cashier isn't going to pay the bills. So she dropped out of high school. She got a second job to cover her mom's medical expenses, and she worked 14-hour days. But it still wasn't enough. This family was evicted from their home in Gilpin Court. A mother who was dying from cancer, a young son who was below grade level, and a teenage daughter who was working herself to death. All three of them had to live in an old Toyota Corolla behind an abandoned warehouse. This rusted out car was their only shield from the bullets and violence surrounding them. They were never given a second chance. They were seen as a nuisance to the community that was supposed to care for them. Friends, we let this family down. A dying mother spent her last remaining days living in shame because she couldn't put a roof over her children's head. And at what cost? Now her children have no childhood. They have no education, no stable home life, and no promise of a promising future. And we failed this family. I stand here today because I refuse to watch another family suffer on the streets. Richmond is in the midst of an eviction crisis. We can no longer be silent while our sisters and brothers are evicted from their homes. Friends, the time to stand in solidarity with our neighbors is right now. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Selena Ware, and I'm one of the team leaders at Ebenezer Baptist Church. I'm going to share a brief story that was told during my house meeting last fall. I'm speaking on behalf of a young man who wishes to remain anonymous. He is divorced, and the father of a young child. He has a limited income and has been having trouble finding an apartment that he can afford. After being unsuccessful in finding an apartment, he lived with a family member for several months. Fortunately, he was later able to rent a single room. He lived there for a while, but after the house was sold, he was forced to move again. He found himself in the same predicament, having to live with a family member. So he began searching for apartments again. And just as before, they were either too expensive or they had extremely long waiting lists. In his experience, it appeared that no resources were available for assisting single men with housing. Currently, this young man's situation remains the same, and he is now living with a friend.
Please join me again in thanking Catherine, Heather, and Selena. We are here tonight. As Dr. Hall shared, Richmond has an eviction crisis, and this problem has gone unchecked for 16 years. We are here tonight to stop this epidemic. Less eviction.
More housing.
Less eviction.
More housing.
We have two solutions to the eviction crisis right at our fingertips. First, the eviction diversion program is a crucial resource our city needs. This program gives tenants the time, education, and financial assistance to stay in their homes. In Durham, North Carolina, this program helped 4 out of 5 clients keep an eviction off their record. Thanks to Housing Opportunities Made Equal and Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, Richmond is set to begin an eviction diversion program this summer. However, it needs city funding to provide financial assistance and long-term solutions for families in crisis. Secondly, at the root level, we also need more affordable housing to stop evictions. In the city of Richmond, nearly half of all residents pay more than they can afford on housing. For very low-income people in our city,